A gute Woche. The Rebbe started the Farbrengen by saying that this is the first Shabbos in the month of Cheshvan, which is basically really the first regular Shabbos of the year. Until now, we were in the month of Tishrei, which the month of Tishrei is a general month, Chedesh HaShvi. It's a special month. It's a month which prepares us for the entire year. And Shabbos Bereishis also is part of the month of Tishrei, and it basically finishes off the month of Tishrei. This Shabbos, however, is the first regular Shabbos of the Chadoshim Pratim of the particular months throughout the year. And it's at this Shabbos that it's appropriate to set up a certain schedule and to make a certain resolution for the entire year, as well as all the Shabboses of the year. And the Rebbe started off by saying that to learn what kind of achlata we should make, we could look into Torah. And in Torah itself, there are various different ways of Torah giving a hero, of Torah telling us what to do. Sometimes Torah tells us how to do by actually saying this is what should be done. It actually says in Torah Shabiksav. Sometimes it's not really, it doesn't say clearly in Torah Shabiksav, it's not explicit. But there's a remez in Torah Shabiksav, and it's brought out more clearly in Torah Shabbal Peh. As far as the hero of what to do on Shabbos is concerned, there's a clear hero in Torah Shabiksav, and in fact, you could learn this hero from a Meiser Rav, which means it's not only tells us what to do, but it actually tells us what Moshe Rabbeinu did. As it says in the Pasuk, Vayakel Moshe, that Moshe gathered a kohol on Shabbos, and as the Chazal tell us that Moshe Rabbeinu was Mesaken, you should be makil kehilas b'Shabbos, that people should get together on Shabbos, and as it was by Moshe, that not only he brought together a few people, but he brought together 600,000 people. And those 600,000 people were men between the ages of 20 and 60. That's besides the men that were under 20 and the men that were over 60, as well as women and children. So you could understand what kind of kohol was there, what kind of a Farbrengen, so to speak, happened when Moshe Rabbeinu gathered together all the Yidden. And this took place not only one time when it was Vayakel Moshe, but in fact, Moshe Rabbeinu, throughout his life, from then after, for 40 years, was also every single Shabbos, it was Vayakel Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu gathered all the Jews and spoke to them. And this took place even after Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, when the Eden went into Eretz Yisrael, and then again when Eden went into Golus after Churban Bayis Rishon, and then when Eden came back into Eretz Yisrael by Binyan Bayis Sheni, and then again when Eden went into Golus after Churban Bayis Sheni. So this is the Seder. And this is what we're supposed to learn from, that on Shabbos is the time to be makal kehilas. And what are you supposed to, when you're makal the kehila, when you gather together, what is supposed to happen over there? That the Moshe of every Jew is supposed to speak Divrei Torah. As it says over there, that Moshe Rabbeinu told them the halachas. First of all, the halachas shehazman groma, and the halachas that Moshe Rabbeinu mentions in Vayakel Moshe, in the parsha Vayakel Moshe, that comes behemshich to Vayakel Moshe, is the halachas pertaining to Shabbos. Although Shabbos was already something that they knew about the halachas, as in fact Shabbos is one of the Aseres HaDibros, nevertheless, because of the fact that it was Hazman Groma, it was the day of Shabbos, so that's why Moshe Rabbeinu told them the halachas of Shabbos. So in the same way, we are supposed to learn out from this Meiser Rav that Jews, first of all, are supposed to gather together on Shabbos, to be a makal kehilas b'Shabbos, and secondly, what is supposed to be spoken about? What's supposed to be spoken about is those halachas pertaining to things to Hazman Groma, either something which is negeya to Parshas HaShavua, or something which is negeya to either a yontif that occurs during that week or during that Shabbos, which is appropriate on that day. And in this week's Parsha, which is the Parsha of Noach, so right away we learn out the hero, the Noach, it says twice, so the Medrash tells us that it means that we're dealing here with an issue that's supposed to make a naicha which means to make things that it should be pleasant, sai for Hashem, lo el yenim, and sai letachtenim for nevroim, which also refers to that it helps out both your le el yenim, the el yenim of every Jew, which is his ruchnius, the spiritual part of a Jew, and letachtenim, the gashmis of a Jew, which also teaches us that besides the fact that kipshute, Moshe Rabbeinu taught the Yidden when he was makal kilos b'Shabbos halachas, and as the Medrash tells us that in the Parsha of Vayakel he told them 60 halachas. So he told them in Yonim of Teda, is in Teda itself it's supposed to be when you learn things of Teda, it should be such things, not things that should hurt someone or divrei musar or etc., but rather things that coincide with the concept of naichal el yenim v'naichal letachtenim. And from this naichal el yenim, naichal letachtenim, a Jew keeps on going further and further in bettering himself, and he's yelchu michayil el choyil until it's yero el elikim b'tziyin. And the Rebbe was medayik that the word yero el elikim b'tziyin, what's the concept of tziyin? So it's explained in Chassidus that tziyin, the word tziyin refers to the pnimis haneshama, the very essence of a Jew's neshama. That's the word tziyin, which refers to the yechidah shebenefesh. And that's why it says the pasuk, we say at the end of Hakafis, at the end of the Ata Haresa, we say ki mitziyin teitzei teda, that in other words, how could a Jew come to the real concept of teda, to the emes of teda? That's only when he reaches his mitziyin, the etzem of his neshama, the essence of his neshama. And the same way, when a Jew goes from one darga, from one level to another level, he's supposed to reach until he comes to Yirah Elikim B'tziyin, which means that he reaches his etzem haneshama. And when a Jew reaches his etzem haneshama, he realizes that there really is no end, because the etzem haneshama is part of Hashem himself. And just like Hashem has no end, so the same way the levels that could be reached is also endless. And a person goes from strength to strength until we're zeicher to the binyan hamigdash, which will also be built in tziyin, which is also the revelation of the essence of godliness, and that will be together, that will also be revealed the essence of a Jew, the tziyin of a Jew, and then will truly be the Kimitzia in Teitzei Seder. The Rebbe also continued in the second Sikha and said that since it's the first Shabbos of Cheshvan, so again it's appropriate to mention what the Rebbe mentioned already on Simchas Torah a number of times in Shabbos Bereishis, the idea that we should strengthen ourselves in the limud hashiyurim, in the learning of the shiyurim that every Jew is supposed to learn, especially those shiyurim that were nisyasid through the previous Rebbe, which are the shiyurim of chitas. The Rebbe also mentioned the concept of tzedakah, that every person should be mishtatif in keren hashala, which is a special fund that the Rebbe has, that every single day tzedakah is given from this fund for various different things. And if a person gives to this fund, and he gives according to the number of the days of the year, amount of coins or amount of dollars or whatever, according to the amount of days that there are in the year. So every day, so to speak, his money is going for the various different things that the fund gives money to. So he's being mishtatif in this tzedakah that the fund, in other words, every single day he's having a yishtatifus and all the tzedakahs that the fund helps, which is called Keren Hashana, which the Rebbe again was made that everyone should be mishtatif, everyone should contribute to Keren Hashana. And then again, the Rebbe mentioned, what he mentioned in the first Sikha, the idea that we should learn that every Shabbos is an appropriate time, that there should be Makil Kehilis b'Shabbos, that Jews should get together throughout the world,
get together and learn in Yonim of Teda, and especially those in Yonim of Teda, which is Hazman Grama, as the Rebbe mentioned in the first Sikha. And here the Rebbe mentioned that there is possibility that there should be a Jew that could not get together with other Jews because of circumstances which is not dependent on himself. He's himself in a certain place, and at that point in time it's impossible for him to actually get together with other Jews and have a Farbrengen or Makel Kehilus b'Shabbos. And the Rebbe explained that even this person, being as a Yochid, could also be Mekayim this idea of being Makel Kehilus b'Shabbos, getting together. There's the famous story of the Frierdiker Rebbe's grandfather, which was, the Frierdiker Rebbe was in fact named after him, a son of the Tzemach Tzedek, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchok Avrucher, that he was an Eidim, he was a son-in-law by the Cherkassa. And when he got when he got married, his shver, his father-in-law, made a t'nai that he should daven tefillah b'tzibur. After he was married, his shver noticed, his father-in-law noticed that he wasn't davening with a minyan. So he asked him, we made up a t'nai, we made up that you're going to daven b'tzibur. So he says that b'tzibur means that I get together all my Eser Keiches HaNefesh, all the 10 Keiches HaNefesh of mine, and I put them together in davening. That's what Tefillah B'tzibur is. So the Rebbe said that the same idea, that Tefillah B'tzibur could be putting together the Eser Keiches HaNefesh, in the same way when a Jew is for some reason or another finds himself alone on Shabbos, so he also is supposed to see to it to put together his Eser Keiches HaNefesh and unite them towards one goal, towards the Eibishter. And through that, he'll also be being Mekayim, the idea of being Makel Kehilus b'Shabbos. And here the Rebbe brought out that there is a Maila in a Yochid as opposed to a Tzibur. And as we find that there's the concept of Yechida Shebenefesh, which is the very essence of a Nefesh, and the very essence of a Nefesh could sometimes be brought out only by Yochid. In other words, it's, so to speak, a certain private ordeal within a Jew, that this private ordeal comes and reveals the Etzem HaNefesh, and that could only be brought out through a Yochid. So although there is a Maila B'tzibur, and there is a Maila of Makel Kehilus b'Shabbos, but on the other hand, there's also a Maila of a Yochid, and this Maila of a Yochid could sometimes bring out a certain Maila which is not in the Tzibur, the Maila of Yechida Shebenefesh. And we find that the Eibishter created Adam alone. Lama Nivra Adam Yechidi. And the question of Lama Nivra Adam Yechidi, so normally the question refers to the idea that he wasn't created. In other words, Adam and Chava weren't created together. First Adam was created and then Chava was created. But in reality, this question is also that even if Adam and Chava would have been created together, the question is, why did he create one Adam and Chava? Why didn't he create many Adam and Chavas? And the answer is because there's a mile in a Yochid. There's a mile in a singular that's brought out in Lama Nivra Adam Yechidi, that a person has to understand that each individual is an Elam Mali, and that's only brought out by bringing out his individuality. And this individuality is brought out by being B'Yechidus. So obviously, the Rebbe didn't mention this during the Farbrengen, but obviously, while a person is in a Farbrengen, and a person is together with other Jews, there is also this idea of a Yochid. It doesn't mean to say that when he's a Yochid, when he's together with a Tzibur, he can't bring out this Maila of him being as a Yochid. But of course, when he is a Yochid Mamish, so on one hand, although he's a Yochid, he puts together his Eser Keiches HaNefesh, and that brings out the Maila of a Tzibur, which is basically also the idea of a Jew, even while he is alone, feeling himself part and united with all other Jews. So although Begashmias, he finds himself alone, for reasons which aren't dependent on him, he can't be together with other Jews. But nevertheless, in spirit, he's together with other Jews, and he also does whatever he can to put together all the Eser Keiches HaNefesh of his. But besides that, there's also a Maila of Yechidus, which has to be utilized. And that Maila is and bringing out this specialness of every single individual until the specialty of the Yechidah Shebenefesh. The Rebbe again emphasized the idea of trying to be together with other Jews on Shabbos and learning Torah together with other Jews, and especially in Yonim, which is Azman Grom, and if for whatever situation a Jew can't be together with other Jews, there should also be this idea of Makal Kilis B'Shabbos through bringing out the Yechidah Shebenefesh and also putting together the Esek Keiches HaNefesh. The Rebbe also mentioned the idea that this Shabbos is the Shabbos before Zayin Cheshvan. On Sunday, it's Zayin Cheshvan. And Zayin Cheshvan is the day that the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael start asking the same Talumoter. So although we are now in Chutz La'aretz, and we don't ask, we're not going to ask the same Talumoter, so hopefully by tonight Mashiach will come, the Rebbe said. And then we'll be able to say the same Talumoter together with the Jews in Eretz Yisrael. And that's something which, so therefore we have to know now what's the dinam of the Jews in Eretz Yisrael. But even if Mashiach, the Rebbe said, doesn't come by tonight, so then the Jews will, in Chutz La'aretz will say the same thing that they said on Friday afternoon, which is the same bracha. And the Rebbe over here mentioned that there's an arichus in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, as far as where do they start saying the same Talumoter together with the Jews in Eretz Yisrael. There's a whole arichos. The Alter Rebbe mentions that in Bavel, see, the reason why there's a difference between Chutz La'aretz and Eretz Yisrael is because in Eretz Yisrael they need rain earlier than Chutz La'aretz, than in Bavel. Because Bavel was a valley. And Eretz Yisrael is mountains. So on mountains the water doesn't stay. So therefore they need water earlier. Masha'enkin and Bavel, which is valleys, so therefore they could have the water come a little later, 60 days later. The question is other places of Chutz La'aretz, not Bavel. Do they do as Bavel, because they're also part of Chutz La'aretz? Or do they do as Eretz Yisrael? Because the reason that Bavel starts 60 days, it's not 60 days later than Zayin Cheshvan, it's
4 months. This year's a month.
It's 60 days after the Tkufa. The Tkufa's Tishrei. In any case, there's a arichos in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch about what people in Chutz La'aretz should do. And the Alter Rebbe, after the whole arichos, says that Lepeil we don't do like the arichos that the Alter Rebbe mentions, but we do as they do in Bavel. In any case, the Rebbe said that he once spoke about Barichos, why the Alter Rebbe gets involved in something which is lahalocha, not negeya. But we don't start saying Talumoter until 60 days after the Tkufa. And although so what's happening in Eretz Yisrael, l'chura is not negeya to us, it doesn't apply to us. Nevertheless, first of all, it does apply, because hopefully Mashiach will come by tonight, and then we will be able to say the Saint Talumoter just like they say in Eretz Yisrael. And secondly, the Rebbe mentioned that the concept of Saint Talumoter is something which is not really some distant from us, even being in Chutz La'aretz, because the idea of Geshem we already started saying during Shmini Atzeres. Shmini Atzeres is a special yontif because it's the idea of Atzeres. It's the climax of all the Yomim Tevim throughout Tishrei, and that's when they, so to speak, have a klita. They come to a culmination, a finishing on Shmini Atzeres, and that's when we start asking for Geshem even in Chutz La'aretz. So therefore, the idea of Geshem, of Saint Talumoter, which Yidden start saying in Eretz Yisrael on Zayin Cheshvan, also applies or has some type of a connection to the Jews in Chutz La'aretz. Which the idea of Geshem, the Rebbe explained, was, as it says in the pasuk, Ve'ed Yalim in Ha'aretz. How does Geshem work? How is there rain? Rain comes that first the Ve'ed Yalim in Ha'aretz, that there is vapors that come up from the earth, and that causes rain, which is the idea also of Chedesh Tishrei, as opposed to Chedesh Nisan. As we learned, as Chassidus explains, that the difference between Nisan and Tishrei is, Nisan is Avedas HaTzadikim, and Tishrei is the Aveda of Bali Tshuva. And what is the difference between Avedas HaTzadikim and Aveda from Bali Tshuva? Avedas HaTzadikim is Aveda Mulmailu Lamata. A Tzadik brings Kedusha down into this world, and he doesn't have to worry about elevating the world. On the contrary, he brings Kedusha into the world. About Tshuva, on the other hand, comes milmata l'mayla, that's ve'ed yalim in oretz, that the vapor comes from this world, ve'ed yalim in oretz, and through that it brings rain, which is the hamshacha later on, milmayla l'mata, which symbolizes the concept of Chedesh Tishrei, which comes after the Aveda of Chedesh El, the preparation of the Chedesh HaTshuva, and then we come to Chedesh Tishrei, which is the Hamshacha Milmayla after the Hamshacha Milmayla Lamata, after the Halah Milmata Lamayla in Chedesh El. The Rebbe concluded again with the Hira about being Makel Kilus B'Shabbos throughout the entire year, and we should be Makel Kilus B'Shabbos in the way that it should be Neach, Neichel El Yenim, and Neichel El Tachtenim, until we'll have the real Hakolah, the real Kohol. That's what will happen when Mashiach will come. And Mashiach will bring all the Jews to Eretz Yisrael and to the Beis HaMikdash, and then there will be the Emes and Makel Kehilas B'Shabbos, where Moshe Rabbeinu himself will speak to all the Jews on Shabbos. Bebias Mashiach Tzidkenu. A gute Woche.